Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Josh.
Zach.
Today we're going to bring you some information in regards to TIFs and TIF districts. It was pretty interesting making this video, and I hope you like it.
Sit back and enjoy, guys. Hey guys, Zach here. We're lucky enough to have Ben from Grassroots Collaborative. He's going to give us a little backdrop, a little information on TIFs in Chicago, some of the projects that they have worked on, some of what's going on currently, some looks into the future, and what we might be working on. So just as a backdrop, Ben, if you could introduce yourself and the organization.
Hi, my name is Ben Lorber, and I work for the Grassroots Collaborative. We are a coalition of labor unions and neighborhood organizations in the city of Chicago that was founded in 1999. We are currently a group of 12, some of the most powerful and exciting unions and the most vibrant, innovative community organizations in the city. And we're all over the city. We work on policy issues that basically try to win racial and economic justice in the city of Chicago. And I'd say most of the members of our organizations are low-income communities of color on the south and the west sides.
Cool. I'm hoping to just give the audience a little bit of backdrop as far as what a TIF is and how they work in a city.
Okay, well, very briefly, basically, TIF stands for Tax Increment Financing, and a TIF district is an area of the city. It can encompass a few street corners, it can encompass entire blocks, it can encompass a single building sometimes, but it's an area of the city that the city creates where basically the property tax dollars of that area, after the TIF district is created, any increase in property tax dollars that area generates year after year, normally the money would go, into where all your tax money goes, back into the schools, back into the libraries, back into the parks, back into the community, for all of the public services that we all rely on. But when a TIF district is there, any increase instead goes into a special fund called a TIF fund. And when money starts to accumulate into that TIF fund, then the local alderman or the mayor or various departments and various actors can use that money for special projects. And that project can be the repair of a local streetlight, the repair of potholes. That money can be adding, a new wing onto a library. That money can be touching up the exterior of a school. That money can also be given to a private company as an incentive to encourage it to come and settle in the community and create jobs in the community.
Cool. And I know one of the examples that we have discussed as far as a recent TIF that has caused some controversy and that has had a bit of work that you guys are familiar with is the Logan Square movie theater?
Yes, the Logan Theater, yes.
The Logan Theater, I'm sorry. I was wondering if you could give us a little backdrop or a little history and a little of what's going on currently with that.
Yeah. Well, the Logan Theater is a good example of the position that the collaborative takes on TIF. Logan Square is a gentrifying area. There's a Latino community that's been there for a long time. Rent is rising as rent is rising. A different kind of person is moving there, and the people who live there are being pushed out. And so what's happening with Logan Theater is basically they've received a $1.2 million TIF subsidy to rehabilitate that building. That's a wealthy developer who owns 48 properties in Logan Square, but he himself lives in the suburb of Deerfield. He basically owns a lot of the complexes, the living complexes in the community. he's raising the rents for people who live there. He's causing 52 families recently to be effectively evicted because they can't pay the raising rents. Meanwhile, this developer, whose name is Fishman, is getting $1.2 million of TIF money. That's property tax money that the people of Logan Square are paying into because of this TIF. So whereas if the TIF wasn't there, or if the TIF was being used in a proper way, the people who live there, as tax money would be going to benefit them. Now what TIF is doing is taking their tax money, giving it to a wealthy developer who doesn't really need a $1.2 million subsidy, so that guy can raise rents and evict these families. And this is a very recent thing. These families were in eviction court yesterday, and thankfully local organizations are fighting back. There's a group called Logan Square Neighborhood Association who's fighting back. There's a group called the Metropolitan Tenant Organization who's fighting back. They're holding protests, and they're connecting issues of gentrification to the TIF problem, and they're fighting back, and the people of Chicago are fighting back, and Grassroots Collaborative is fighting back against this.
Wonderful, wonderful. You had mentioned that the Chicago Teachers Union was one of the advocates of some of the TIF movements and whatnot that was going on. I was wondering if you could touch base on that.
Yeah, well, to give you guys a little background, as I'm sure everyone knows, last year Mayor Emanuel's administration made the decision to close 50 public elementary schools in predominantly low-income communities of color on the south and the west sides. There's a whole lot of protests, as you know, against this. And what the Chicago Teachers Union was doing was connecting the issue of TIF to these school closings. If you think about it, if there weren't these downtown TIF districts siphoning tens, hundreds of $millions out of our tax base every year, that would be property tax money that would be going to our public school system. So while Chicago Public Schools is saying that there's a crisis in funding that's causing the schools to have to be closed, meanwhile there's hundreds of millions of dollars of tax money sitting in these TIF accounts. There's actually the figure is $1.8 billion is sitting in these TIF accounts currently. That's money that could be used to get textbooks, to hire teachers, to basically keep these schools open. And like I said, the schools that are being closed are in the low-income Black and Latino communities on the south and west sides. These schools are the anchors of the communities there. You know, closing a public school is like closing a community. These are elementary school children who are facing a lot of violence and a lot of poverty in their communities. And you know, while this is happening, you know, a developer on the lakefront is getting $30 million to build a park for, you know, corporate white workers to, you know, take a smoke break, you know, in a very cushy park down there. So there's an obvious tale of two cities going on here, and the Chicago Teachers Union was really doing a great thing, and still is fighting a really good fight to show that the communities of Chicago aren't going to sit down and take this, but they're going to fight back against this, and they're going to help to keep our schools open and keep our communities strong.
Wonderful. Well, I'm glad that people have spoken out, have voiced their differences, have seen the ongoing issues of where this money is going. I was curious if you could give us some insight and possible opinion of why the money would be going towards these one percenters, this luxurious park for people to smoke in, rather than going to school districts or places that seem like they potentially should be the priority.
What's become clear to organizations like the Grassroots Collaborative and to many of everyday Chicagoans is that the Emanuel administration does really not have the interests at heart of the vast majority of Chicagoans. We're seeing an increasing disparity of wealth here. We're seeing increasing poverty in the midst of a little sea, you know, a little island of affluence, to paraphrase Martin Luther King's words a long time ago. And basically, Mayor Emanuel, like the Daley administration before him in many ways, but in a more concentrated, intense way, really has the corporate elite interests of a select few at heart. He really doesn't have the interests of the neighborhoods at heart, and he has his theories that funneling lots of money into the pockets of his corporate buddies is going to jumpstart economic development in Chicago. But what we're seeing is increasing poverty and disinvestment in our neighborhoods.
Now, I just wanted to touch base on where you see this going in Chicago going forward. Obviously, you guys have had progress. There's been battles. There's been accomplishments. More people are aware of it, are familiar with it. I guess awareness is your biggest asset. The more people who know where their property dollar taxes are going, the more people support where it should be going. I was just curious if you had a vision of how things are going in the next year, in the next 5 years, and going forward, as well as your vision for Grassroots and what you guys are hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, well, this year we and many of our member and allied organizations are building a citywide movement called Take Back Chicago. Like I said, we had a 2,000-person rally last year. That's growing into a movement this year. We're going to be hitting the doors. We're going to be calling people all across the city to build power in these communities that are hit hardest by the Emanuel administration's policies to basically take back Chicago for the people who live here. You know, the Emanuel administration wants the city to be a certain way, but the people of Chicago are determined to fight back. And basically, we're going to be doing a lot this year and in the coming years. There's a big campaign underway right now to raise the minimum wage in Chicago to $15 an hour. It's a big statewide coalition to win a progressive income tax in Chicago. But beyond that, we're going to be targeting a lot of these corporations who are getting our tax money as subsidies handed out by the mayor. We're going to be applying pressure on them and forcing this system to change. And our vision of Chicago, a vision that we want Chicago to become in the next year, today, in the next 5 years, we basically want good jobs and healthy and vibrant communities in the city of Chicago. And that's something that's within our reach. And the people of Chicago are fired up and we're ready for it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm glad that we were able to obviously expose some of the truths of what's really going on. For people who do want to follow your organization and would like to be involved in it, can you let us know of any outlets to do so?
Yeah, we encourage you to go to our Facebook. We're Grassroots Collaborative on Facebook. Go to our Twitter account. Our hashtag is @GrassrootsChi, CHI. Also go to our website, thegrassrootscollaborative.org, and you'll see a lot of great information there. You'll see what our member organizations are doing, groups like the Chicago Teachers Union, groups like Action Now, groups like Brighton Park Neighborhood Council, unions like SEIU Healthcare. There's a movement that's coming in Chicago and it's here now, and yeah, encourage you to look us up.
Cool. Grassroots, you guys are doing wonderful things. Ben, we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you.